Mark Zuckerberg's opinions on the Apple Vision Pro, and a QNAP vulnerability. This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter that keeps you up with everything MacVoices is doing. From our published episodes to Chuck's other appearances to special events and more, subscribe at macvoices.com/newsletter and stay fully informed so you don't miss a thing. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. The MacVoices Live panel discusses Mark Zuckerberg's opinions on the Apple Vision Pro as expressed during a social media post as well as an interview with Morning Brew Daily. Then we talk about a vulnerability that QNAP has and whether you should be concerned or not. Let's go and let the panel do the talking. So I wasn't going to bring this up, but somebody said the word Quest. Did any of you see either the video that Mark Zuckerberg posted on social media about how the Quest is a better value and it's a better product? Or did you see him interviewed by the Morning Brew podcast crew, where he took a couple pot shots at Apple fanboys? And I'm trying to get the ladder, trying to get the link for the ladder here to throw into the chat. But
yeah, Microsoft did the same thing with the iPhone. Look how that turned out.
You're reading my mind, Ben.
Well, that's it. Somebody called this out as Zuckerberg's, Steve Ballmer moment, where they did it with the iPhone and ended up looking foolish. And it just, it's only been out a few days as opposed to the Quest. It's a completely different class of product. I don't know. It's like I couldn't.
I don't think it's fair to compare that with what Ballmer said. I mean, Ballmer, ridiculed the phone. I don't think Zuckerberg did that. It was, I'm by no means a Zuckerberg fan, but he was level-headed about it, and he had what he was saying. That is he right? Probably not, but it wasn't in any way like what Ballmer said about the phone 15 years ago.
That's a real good point, Jim. And I really hadn't thought about it from that angle. I guess I kept looking at it thinking, okay, you're the CEO of the company that makes the competing product, and you're coming out and saying your product has better value. I question some of the ways that he compared the two, but even so, it's like, why? I mean, it smacked of being on the defensive right out of the gate for me.
Well, why wouldn't he be?
And Chuck, to be fair, lizard people, they have a hard time emulating human emotion.
I'm surprised that a CEO of a company doesn't realize that he's talking about two different kinds of computing platforms. One is essentially a VR, AR gaming device. The other one has the capabilities of acting as a productivity tool and a computing tool. And Meta is nothing like that. So.
Oh, he knows. In fact,
he didn't say that the Vision Pro was terrible or was going to flop or anything. He just said, hey, look, we have this device and it does these things, and don't forget about us when we think we've got something good, and here's why. And what he said didn't. I don't agree that. I mean, I've not used either of these, but just based on the coverage, I don't think it's likely that the Quest is better, but it might be for some things. Certainly, it's more for games and whatnot. And that's what they've made it for.
And if you're just looking at price, it certainly economically, it's not as expensive, and you could get one for, each of your kids as opposed to one that maybe they get to touch once. So it's kind of how you're looking at it and what the use case is, and I could see his point. I'm not sure I agree, but yeah.
But he also didn't compare it to their top end Quest. That, and I thought that was a little bit telling too, that because he was relying, the way I heard it, he was relying a lot on the price comparison, and and the quality of everything. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, but why aren't you comparing it? Why aren't you comparing flagship to flagship, even though Apple only has one? Why don't you say, this is what we can do with the top of our line. This is what they're doing with what is basically the only line. That would have felt a little bit more sincere to me. As it was, it just felt like it was so self-serving and, again, very defensive.
Agreed.
But that's my interpretation. That doesn't mean it's accurate.
Agreed. I think he's observed what's happened. If you go back, since the iPhone, Android came out, and I guess now Apple is now the biggest volume leader with their phone. They've come out, from very high price points to price points that are in the mainstream. And I think Zuck is probably worried about that. So, to me, this story wholly came to be because the media wants an contrary view to what Apple is doing, and Zuck is out there, so he's in a perfect position to do it. And I'm not surprised. He said, "Oh, in my opinion, ours is better for all of these reasons. Principally price, because he can't compete on quality, so he has to change the subject to something else."
Mark, if I were really paranoid, and I am, so I'll bring this up, but I also felt like this takes the Google search for his name. These are now the first things that pop up, as opposed to a couple weeks ago when he was in front of a Senate committee testifying and being shamed. So, that would be very shrewd of him or some of his marketing people to do that. But I can't help but wonder if, he ended up looking really, really bad there. So he's going to come out now and look more like Zuckerberg that is trying to sell you a Quest.
Well,
right.
I should hope he's going to say he believes in his product. I mean,
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if they put, if you go back, 10 years and you put, Page or Brin and ask them about, iPhone versus, their Google designed, Android phone, of course they would say that their phone is better. I mean, there's no expectation that, they would do anything different, but, it's just, I mean, I read some of these things. I stopped spending any more time there because I figured just wasted time in my life that I would never get back, because it's predictable what he's going to be saying.
Yeah.
Plus, as the CEO of a major corporation, a major public company, everything he says in public is vetted with legal and marketing before he says a thing.
Yeah. Just like with Elon Musk.
Wow.
Oh, Jim, this is why I love you.
Jim, you've gone a step too far.
Here we go. Okay, so let's move on to just a couple other things here, because we're going to run out of time. We should touch on some of these. Mark, you threw this in, and I consider this a PSA, but apparently QNAP has a bit of a vulnerability problem. Mark, you want to touch on this one for us?
Oh, yeah. I tossed this in here, I think, a while ago, so I forget all the specifics, but I think apparently there's some group at, I think, so a lot of the major security companies have, teams that investigate, all sorts of hacks and vulnerabilities. And I think, a couple of weeks ago, a group at Palo Alto Networks, a great company, but their stock got slaughtered today. But Palo Alto Networks discovered a vulnerability in some of the QNAP products, where basically somebody could you forge a request, and it would, if it was done appropriately, it would allow the attacker to run almost any command on the system. So it's a huge gaping wide old vulnerability. They found that. So I tossed it in here because I think 6 or so months ago, 9 months ago, we talked about a QNAP vulnerability, and 6 or 9 months before that, I think we talked about a QNAP vulnerability. So to me, it's just seeming like a recurring bad dream. But if people have it, I'm sure Chuck, you'll put it in the show notes on MacVoices.com, so that any QNAP owners out there can become aware of what it is. And I think the good news is that firmware upgrade fixing the problem has been released. But that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, I feel it's important when we pop up some of these things, especially for something like a QNAP or any of the other network attached storage devices. They're designed to be just that, network attached on the internet. And so, if they have a vulnerability, you want to know about it, you want to get it patched ASAP, or take it offline until those things become available. It's just, it's a crazy world out there, unfortunately. And
Or if you have it, don't close the ports on your firewall so it's not publicly accessible.
Right.
Okay. Mark, you are taking me right down the path that bothers me with this whole thing, which is that we have so many products like this that are available to anyone now, that the product manufacturers, they should be holding themselves to a higher level of accountability. And granted, I get it. These are really complex things, and you can't find every potential security flaw before you ship. But these companies, I feel like they should be doing more. And in this case, like you said, this is a recurring story for these products. And the average person that can go out and buy these things, they don't know that they should be closing ports on their firewall or doing these other things to lock down the product, or in many cases don't even know that there are security updates that are coming out. I just feel like these manufacturers should be doing more to protect their users.
Yeah, I agree with part of that, but I think the other thing is, at least in my experience, most internet service providers, their devices are pretty locked down. So, it's only somebody who wanted to use this to have, ability to share it offsite, like QNAP or Synology or other things do, that requires some amount of technical chops to go in and open it up. So they're not Aunt Sally who's buying, who received this and puts it online and suddenly gets victimized.
Yeah, that's true. My grandma's not going to go out buy a NAS.
No.
Yeah, but again, I think people should read the thing. Is on this. It's such an obvious brain dead, vulnerability that you got to wonder, WTF are they thinking about, or are they even thinking at all? I mean, this one was really egregious, so take care, people. There's a lot of products out there, and there's a lot of evil users, and there's a lot of dumb manufacturers. And so, unfortunately, the internet, everything comes together. And I think the big thing in the past was QNAP was suspected for a lot of ransomware, where they download and infiltrate it and encrypt everything and say, you want your data back, send this fraction of a Bitcoin to this address. And I know Synology has had problems where people have infiltrated it to use it for trying to mine for Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So it's an ongoing problem. And best advice, if you want it, don't let it get exposed, to the internet. And If you don't understand what that means, you should probably ask yourself, do you have the necessary skills to responsibly manage one of these products if you're considering buying one of them?
Yeah. If you don't, that means get a DAS.
Right.
Yeah. And
yeah, you can get, for instance, you can get, 18 terabyte, Seagate hard drive that, you can connect via USB 3. You can get it for $270. That's 18 terabytes. If you need smaller capacities, you can get stuff down to, like $60, $70. So those are much better solutions, for backup if you don't have the technical skills to responsibly manage a network attached storage device.
And I want to be careful here because this is not picking on QNAP. QNAP, I think, is one of in my opinion, has always been one of the more technically oriented NAS devices, as opposed to some of the others that, and I'm hesitant to call names because, well, I know one, Synology is just bringing out something that we just talked to them at CES that is very much geared for Jeff's Aunt Sally. That it's real simple, 3 clicks and you're done. And that one, I would hope they have that locked down tight. And I think with Synology's reputation, they do. QNAP is a little more technical, which is why I bring it up here, because I feel like we have a fairly technical audience. Our users are much more likely to be running a QNAP than the Synology and Sally device. So, just be aware of it.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I have a 4-base Synology device, and if you want to share it on the internet, you have to download and install a lot of packages. You have to go through a lot of work, so it's not something that is going, unless of course you have a really dubious, sketchy internet service provider. It's just getting one of these Synology devices that for which I have firsthand experience. You're probably at very low risk for having your data hijacked or compromised or ransomware or any of these other attacks.
Yeah, I have Synology devices too, and same thing. I feel very, very good about the security they provide. So, just be aware. Just be aware. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.